Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 15th of December, 2024. And yeah, we got fucking whatever's going on in the sky, the bombs and shit going off everywhere. It's a rather crazy, crazy time. Rolling events are rolling on, and the psychological fallout is getting what would we class it as, Grant? More evident for all eyes to see, depending upon one's own programs, beliefs, and perceptions of reality, and wanting things to be a particular way, more from a lunar frame, rather than actually seeing things as they are and seeing how things actually play themselves out, because nothing is ever as it seems, has not been for a long period of time. But since we're at the end of 2024, and I am not the only one that has spoken about this, but this passage of time, 2020 to 2030, first part of the changeover years is 2020 to 2024. And that second part is 2026 to 2030, and 2025 is a choice point. And within that choice point, it gets very big, because it's not just the choices that we make, but also from a much larger perspective of the social contracts and what they all really mean and what they really all represent. And are we able to individually, first and foremost, step into our own authority and what sovereignty actually really means? Not just sovereignty from fuck the government and all the rest of the other components that go with that, even though that's important because that is a phase of pushing the bar forward, but sovereign from mind, from heart, from action, from word, and how much of that is in our center and congruence upon our own principles, our own values, and which I suppose frame we're seeing the world. There has been, for a considerable amount of time, huge amounts of psychic driving that has been going on, which we're going to touch on this evening. Again, I know it might be a subject that you guys are a little bit bored of me speaking about, but by the repetition of speaking of it, it gives you the opportunity to go, hang on a moment. It's very easy to call out psyop and predictive programming and all the rest of these different things, but we need to understand that it's actually happened to us as well, and it has skewed our perception more so into a reactivity of the programs, beliefs, and perceptions that we've been receiving more so than not since we're in the cot. But before we get into all of that, I am going to give myself a plug. But before I do so, I do not generally in my lives speak about personal matters or anything like that. I'm more of a solar man and wait 4 cycles of time and the alchemy of it to turn experiences into knowledge, and then sit with that for a bit so that then there is wisdom that comes out of that. I did make a decision, a year, maybe a little bit ago, to pull back a fair bit and really look at what was important for myself. And my original intent was always about this kind of next phase of time, which I'm excited about. But to be honest with you, I have been in the trenches for near on a decade now. You can say from some woo components, from some visions, some innate components, but when it comes to gaming, I only really play 2 types of games, and one is RTS, which is real-time strategy, and the other is RPGs. Yes, I do play chess and those components, but that has been a huge part of my career environment. But anyways, I did take a step back from mentoring and quite a few other components. had some projects on the go, which they're not really finished up, but I've taken them as far as I can take them, and working with some other folks with their projects. They're on their own now, and I have done my part with being able to assist with my subject matter expertise and being able to help them be operationally viable, but also as well, it's given me a huge eye opener into the tech space, which I've spoken about at length, going back even to 2020. I'm going to speak about some of that tonight. But over the next passage of time, I am moving in a few different directions, but one of them will be these types of formats of communication that I kind of do with you. I don't even know what we'd call them as. They're definitely not podcasts, webcast, or Grant just speaking freely, or, dropping breadcrumbs, whatever we want to call it. But yeah, it would be more into short form, more direct, and more knowledge based with practical tools. And then also with Magus, which is, I can say, has been almost 10 years in the making, really. And when I speak about cycles later, I think a few of you might get some insight out of that, because it's not always easy to think that you're going to do something in a couple of months, and then it takes you a lot longer to build out, but also gives you an opportunity to go back to being an apprentice, and all the way back, and also coming to terms with some of the developmental things that we learn that may be sped through that, and spending some time with those components. But anyway, so what I am doing right now, which I will show you, and this is more so for folks that have hit me up for mentoring. I will get back to you guys over the next few weeks, but here is my new website. So if you want to check out some mentoring stuff and we can have a chat, here's Emergence, which I'm going to speak to you about, and obviously Magus Guild. The website's up, it's there, but the new one will drop in the next couple of days, same as some marketing components. But with Emergence Portal Crew, I'll speak to you guys in the next couple of days about that. But yeah, this is an 8-week program that will be kicking off in the back end of the second week of January, and it will be associated with Portal community as well. So there is, I do Q&As and chats once a month in there. I haven't really been advertising that all that much, mainly because my focus has been on some other areas, and now I have the time and I know what I'm wanting to do with it. So go and have a check of that out, and you can go down here and we can have a chat, see if it's the right fit for you, or me and you can have a 15-20 minute chat or whatnot. But what I will say about it is, I done a year or so doing a course called Invitation to Emerge, and then I done a more advanced one called Emergence, and having a chat to quite a few different folks over the last, let's say, 6 months. And and I tip my hat to a lot of you, more so guys that and the ladies that have kept on tuning in and paying attention to what I'm throwing out there, to give you guys the opportunity to see things as they are, or grab some insight from. But I've put it together in a structural form that they will become foundational tools for you to be able to work with over the next period of time. There is a huge emphasis on the psychological component, hence, the psychological fallout. But I suppose when it comes to how I have structured all of that, and you can go and read about it, it's all there. There's, you guys know what I'm like. There's some woo elements and some mystery teachings in there. But to give you guys the opportunity to have something that you can develop your own disciplines from, and through this passage of time, build the momentum in a consistent format to continually moving forward. Yeah. And accept the reality that what was once is no more. And do you want to keep on re-invoking the stories, or come to a now moment and live your myth? Now, let's be very real. You're not going to just do the 8 weeks and spontaneously combust and be an ascended master or whatnot like that. It is 8 weeks, there's a couple of extras and some Q&A components to it, but it's structured in a way for you to go, okay, here are developmental tools for me to be able to utilize as foundations and as working practices to push through and get beyond. My objective of it is that I do not want people to be battle fatigued this time next year, running around in loops and other people's yelling and screaming, it's this, it's that, and all the rest of it. Okay, there's enough of that. What game are you playing? Okay, what are the rules of the game that you are playing? Okay, are they someone else's? You know, there's a lot to really consider. But I will do a, let's say, a webinar or promo on that maybe just before Christmas. But there is an early bird component to it. So for those that hit me up in the next couple of days, let's have a yarn. You'll get a special deal out of me. Now, to the lads, we'll speak later on at the end of this, but there's a Renaissance revolution going on. You know, men of knowledge can say, oh, it's time to stand up. No, not really. It's time to let go of the nonsense and come to terms with living your myth. It's such an exciting time now as we're moving into a new paradigm. Now, we could go off on a 3-hour tangent about that, but I just want to break it down into a simple manner. And you're probably going to hear about this a little bit more. Actually, I'll just jump straight into this now, and then we'll get into the psychic driving and sci-fi, all that stuff. So I'm going to show this to you. So anyway, I'll finish that off. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to come and play in Emergence, hit me up. We can have a yarn, see if it's the right fit, and away we go. And you also have access to Portal for a year. So that'll be great. But here we go. Just in the last week, we have had, I haven't got this here, but Meta have come out with their new AI, which it's open source. Funny that, isn't it? Who told you about that a couple of years ago? Isn't it funny that Meta is pivoting towards open source? Interesting. NVIDIA just gave Thailand a massive, it's not quite a supercomputer, but close enough for people, folks like you and I, to be able to build out our AI infrastructure on, called Sovereign Cloud. Fascinating, moving into an open source kind of arena. Google has just come out with its chip Willow. So you can see here, I highly recommend that you check this stuff out, even if you think that you're not a tech person. But what isn't really being spoken about quite yet is just how big this release is. This is equivalent or close enough to the last great technological advancement that we had, which is when we split the atom. Like, this is massive in how quickly and how fast tech is moving. And you know, when I speak about that choice point, but the other one, which I know people are going to get scared about this, so I'm going to show you the video. Okay, Yes, you're reading this correctly. Water-powered humanoid robot with synthetic organs, muscles, unveiled. Pretty crazy. That's just in the last week. So there has been something that, I don't know whether you want to call it unlocked or we'll just use unlocked, because for the UAP things to be coming, there's so many different things with that, but let's just keep it practical, Grant. What does all of this mean? Okay, now, if you guys are on your computer, I would like for you guys to type in Project Avatar 2045. Now, Project Avatar, I spoke about this in 2020 and no one really took it seriously. And I know the whole AI robot thing is all up in everybody's grill, but this is what I mean. It is super significant upon how you are actually choosing your authority here, and with the psychic driving, which we're going to get into. So I'm going to bring this up now. Where is it? Project. Now you can see this, okay? So Avatar A 2015 to 2020, a robotic copy of a human body remotely controlled via BCI. Now, in short, without getting into technicalities, do you guys know Sophia? That robot Sophia. Okay, look what year that was done in. So are they ahead of schedule or are they behind schedule? Okay, and remember, this is DARPA stuff coming front side. Now, 2020 to 2025, an avatar in which a human brain is transplanted at the end of one's life. Okay, that's 2020 to 2025. Right now, the 2030 to 2035 is, where things get wild. An avatar with an artificial brain in which a human personality is transferred at the end of one's life. And 2040 to 2045, a hologram-like avatar. Now, that 2040 to 2045, I think they've already mastered that with fucking Joe Biden, to be quite honest. But anyways, let's be real. But the reason why I'm suggesting this is that you and I know that this stuff isn't kind of just being invented. It is rolling out. And who is and has been doing our thinking? Now, it's very easy. The first thing we do, we go into react. So we will look outside and, maybe, profile other people upon, their program, the normies, and it goes on and on and on, without actually going, how much of my beliefs are essentially me adopting from, I suppose, people pleaser, but to fit into something I've inherited from my parents, culturally, there's so many different components to this. But with the psychic driving component, where we know MK Ultra went worldwide, and with the Black Mirror, the algorithm is doing our thinking for us. It really is. So how much of the algorithm is actually doing our thinking when we think that we're actually doing our thinking? This is massive, particularly on a personal level. There's a lot of talk out there, which is great. It's another one of pushing the bar with, individuating from, the mother wound, or individuating from the father wound. Okay, but if we were to look at the systems upon which we get brought up in, where would you say that government is more male orientated? It would look like that on the surface, but it's been more feminine, particularly in the West, for a long period of time. So there is so much to, let's say, individuate ourselves out of, and really get into some Socrates types of questioning of ourselves upon what actually really makes us tick. What are we really attracted to? What is it? Very easy to just throw it off and go, oh, it was a trauma from when I was 5 years old, or blah, 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 all the rest of the psycho babble that's out there, which at one point, and I've been a smart ass with it and probably joking around a little bit too much, but is that really, really important to what is happening for oneself right now? Here you have a temple. Now, I tried to stress, and it was funny because I'll be honest with you, the moment that I started to say this, did I get belted? I got smacked with porn bots. I just got belted all over the place. Crazy people with their emails and all the rest of it. When I started to speak about this a few years ago, whether it aggravated some folks or I tripped up the language in the algorithm, not sure, but it wasn't, it definitely wasn't pleasant. And it had to do with the technology and how we're actually using it. Now, we are, and we still are, and have been in a massive psychological operation. One part deprogramming, one part misinformation, the other part misdirection. It's rather complex. 5th generational warfare moving into 6th generational warfare. I highly advise you go and have a look at that type of stuff yourself. It'll give you more of a bigger vantage point to actually see how much of it has really affected you and how you perceive, receive, and react. But here goes. A massive choice point over the next period of time when social contracts really break apart is how you and I are going to utilize this technology. Are we going to utilize it as an extension of ourselves, or are we just going to go, I don't need to learn knowledge like I once did through a form of alchemy, through experience, through passion, through intent, and building that up, giving us more of an access to the higher mind or the monad? Or are we just going to utilize AI for absolutely everything? And whether people like this or not, that is the way that it is going. They took our jobs, all the rest of the other crazy hoo-ha talk. Okay, that's all really relevant, but let's get our heads in a solar world here and see where really this is all going. Because with the psychic driving element, now I might hurt some feelings here, and it isn't my intention, but it's to bring something forward to you, because we hear the word agenda, and everyone would go, I know the agenda. And it's like, okay, great, awesome. Which one? And what mechanisms can you actually see that has brought it to this stage? Now, I have attempted to have conversations with folks about this. It doesn't go down too well very quickly. Is it one part that they don't know? Is it another part that they're not interested? Or is it a part of this psychic driving to a point of only getting this much of information that creates a confirmation bias of dot connecting that formulates a new program and a new perception of reality? I think it's that. But anyway, so here I go with this. If I was to ask you what type of system you live in right now, what do you think it would be? I can't hear you, but let's just play along, yeah? Most folks would go capitalism, wouldn't they? Okay, but that's the wrong answer. Because if you were to, and just so that everybody knows like what I'm like, when it comes to the WEF and all of those different bodies, even the Club of whatever they used to put out or still put out, I would go and read, or I would go and listen to, even though I didn't want to, but I wanted to hear it exactly and how they would speak about it, the frame, and even their implementation, so that I would get an understanding of both the logistical operation, the rollout, the political, all the rest of the things. And I suppose I treated it like a video game, an adult video game. So, okay, Jace has just put in socialism. Okay, part of that would be correct. Okay, now when it comes to the WEF, they were utilizing a language called shareholder capitalism. Now, if you want to, you can go and have a look at this, because it will bring you up to present day and actually understand when someone says we're in system changeover, you're going to be able to see it and go, holy shit. And there's a small little slip road to be able to play. So they were talking about their shareholder capitalism. Now, what does shareholder capitalism entail? Well, it's all a whole heap of fancy words and a whole heap of absolute nonsense. But what it essentially comes to, and with what we've seen, is that shareholders like your Gates and your Soros and all the rest of these other actors, so to speak, or people that have been rolled out into positions to bring about this shareholder capitalism, to essentially get all the way down to the local level, to drill holes in it, to set it up for a controlled demolition, for them to be able to roll into their new system, which we all know about. COVID was a huge component of it, which kind of failed to a degree. Then you could almost go, it would seem that we're in a digital capitalism space with the way that a lot of money is being made on the internet. Yeah. Okay. But that money that's being made on the internet, what is that actually fueling? Well, you know about the PayPal mafia, you know about Meta, you know about Google. All of this is these same shareholder capitalism types. Now, who is actually running them? And then you could almost go, are we in techno capitalism? And you would go, wow, that's like getting out there, Grant. And when you have a look at that, you'd go, yeah, there's definitely elements of that too. But then if you really break it down, you go, well, it's what's really taken place is techno feudalism. And I'm going to bring the book up actually, because it's a good book. If it interests you, I highly recommend. But old mate's done quite a few podcasts. Yeah. Yanis knows his shit. Yeah, whether you like him or not. But that book, yeah, bit of an eye opener, because it's explaining, you know, capitalism's dead and what we're actually living in is kind of nonsense. So when it comes to Oz, it's very easy to go, oh, we're in socialism. And you'd be looking at that going, yeah, but those types of forms of capitalism that I just threw in there, you would understand that they're different phases and kind of different economies that are flowing around, where there's been a license to just type digits into a computer screen and do this quantitative easing, just printing money and get it to a point where we're at right now, which is what happens. Does it implode? Is there a collapse? Is there what's being spoken about with a reset? Is there the countries moving into having commodities backed, which that's where I lean. There's enough evidence to support that across the board if you're paying attention. So here we are at this kind of changing of systems component as well. But if you throw in the psyche driving, where I was going to before with the agenda, is that there seems to be a lot of looping. And I'm not saying it as a diss or being disrespectful at all, but that there is essentially a huge component of the psychic driving, that there is all of these theaters at the moment. And they're rather relevant. You know, the Diddy thing and, you know, all the rest of that old system, well, that's essentially not really in play the way that it once was. And even within its psychic driving or magic control, or the, let's say, the Illuminati systems, because ultimately you and I have been having the machine do our thinking for us in very subtle ways. And it has profiled us to extents we don't even know. Same as like on here, we're on the video, I'm on the video, yeah? The way that the facial features and hands and all the rest of these components, like it's pretty massive. Like it gets out there very quickly. And the reason why I bring that up is because the looping is of an activist mindset, where it's, this is what I want, this is what I believe is the best for everybody, and I need to attack it and bring it down, and then it's this and then it's that, and there's all the rest of these other side conversations that you could connect dots to, but if you don't, you can see that, are there conversations that have been inserted? Are there topics that are overlaying each other, but there's missing parts of data that can give a different lens or a different degree of separation to really actually look at and see and be like, that's not my game. How am I actually positioning myself? But let's say more from a solar frame, it is actually being able to see it as it is. Okay, not how we think, not how we feel. Can we see it without the programs, beliefs, and perceptions actually creating language and emotions around how we need to think or feel about it? Stop for a moment, see it. Is there someone I respect, or where are these conversations? And more so often than not, is it actually really the game that you're in? How much of your focus or how much of your intent is it actually stealing off you to go in a particular way, and you get on a YouTube or whatever kind of vortex, and then you're in fucking scattered land again? It is a very big game. And the machine component to this, or ghost in the machine, you need to be very aware of it. Like, let's just have a look at, I want to bring up two examples. One, obviously the UAP stuff. There's probably about 100 different things going on about that right now. But people don't like it when I say his name, but old mate Cliff called this like 2 months ago. Interesting that. How did he do that? Well, he has a language bot that scours the internet and picks up language markers. Isn't that interesting? So what would that actually really mean? Well, that would mean just through language change and certain other things that he has within his so-called chatbot can actually pick up the momentum of these types of components. Well, he classes as emotional tension. But rather than getting into that, because it would be speculative at best, but here are these rolling events. And is it really important to be spending time in it right now, yelling and screaming, it's this, it's that, it's blue beam, blah, 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 blah. What? I don't think blue beam's going to happen. So that ages ago, that genie's out of the bottle. But what really is it? Well, is it part of this kind of technology stuff opening up? Or this is my summary of it, is that is there something going on right now to create theatre or drama to push out to get a gauge upon the language and the emotional tension upon certain countries, certain groups that have been mapped out, to be able to see where and what can be done next in this grand game. By me choosing to look at it like that, it opens up other questions. And then by doing so, you get to have a look at other circumstances that are going on at this time. And ultimately, it comes down to a changing, let's say, of the guard, more overt than covert. It's rather spectacular, but once again, whether you decide to come and do some work with me or you do it yourself or whatever that is, that's your choice. But spend the next period of time with being very deliberate in your choices, your intent, and your disciplines upon where it actually is that you are moving in a momentum and focus, or you're going to get caught up in all of this. And that's, I suppose, very easy to just go, oh, psychological fallout's out there. No. It's in here too, as these new paradigms present themselves. I want to speak about knowing your own cycles as well. I suppose the sisters have more of an advantage over the fellas with this one, because they go through a cycle once a month. But the lunar calendar is 28 days. And as the moon goes through its cycle, not every day, but, depending upon the size of the star sign, is that it moves through the zodiac. Great. Good to know. There's some magical components in there, but I'll leave that there. But where I'm getting to with knowing your own cycles is that, I suppose for myself, this is where things get personal, yeah? The last 6 months have been a combination of 5 or 6 different cycles coming to an end. One could look at it as an end. The other way we could look at it is beginnings, which is great. But there's an in-between period. And I can get all busy in what was once or what I'm actually wanting to do next, and, being on that seesaw, or just kind of stop, slow down, and really, I don't want to say get to work, but come into my own knowing of my own lessons learned, the experiences that I had, some of the lies that I told myself upon my perception at the time of how they actually happened. Even some of the, let's say, portrayal and some of those things which aren't nice at all. And as much as there's fuckery and there's still a bit of hurt and pain with that, where is it to just keep on doing shadow work, all these components, or actually there's a bit of fire in the belly. And what that showed me there was that, yeah, I was a good person. But I played in a shared fantasy. Okay, shared fantasy. It's a lot easier to go, I played in a shared fantasy, and what did I do? Well, I wanted something to look and be a particular way, and I fought for that, even though it was an illusionary component and the other people involved, I painted them in an image that they weren't. So am I going to get pissed at them? Or do I look at it and go, well, how's about we take the rose-colored, the rose-colored glasses off, Grant, and really get into a position to have eyes wide open and take account for all of that. And by doing so, you know, you come into your own cycles of that as well. And when we're in a cycle of 9 to 5s and entertainment and truth attainment and all of those things, our mind is taking on way too much information and trying to solve things in an instant with a quick, oh, I've just cleared that, rather than occupying a place of patience and some time and letting the wisdom catch up to us, going through the alchemy of the experience, gaining the knowledge, understanding our own vulnerabilities, not from a place of surrender and weakness, but from a place of, what are my vulnerabilities? Where am I thinking I am a lot better at something than I actually am not? And who do I seek out that can assist me with a pathway forward, or show me where my blind spots are within the smoky mirror, rather than this instantaneous kind of very Lacanian therapeutical methods. And there's much bigger components. You know, there's the astrology, which is a great debate at the moment, isn't it? You got the sidereal folks at the tropical, and you know, it's all really relevant. But yeah, that's almost the same game as the flat Earths and the globies at the moment. And then I suppose within the cycles as well, you have the astrobiology component. And what's that entail? Well, that's a whole study within itself. And I suppose what I would say just briefly on the astrobiology is that, you know, some of the bigger planets, where are they actually occupying in the heavens? Yeah, depending upon what you're actually doing with your life at certain times. Can you understand those sequences and those components, and even the cycles of the Earth? Like, for instance, when I was younger, I would always get a cold sore at like the start of June, always in the same spot. Yeah, the start of June, until I was like maybe 13 or 14, and I suppose grew out of that, but all the time. Now, what was that really all about? I still don't know the answer. But I suppose for me, looking at it now, was that it was that winter time, and my body changing, me now knowing that when my body goes swampy, my body doesn't like it. My immune system breaks down, and these components. So this is what I mean with understanding your cycles and understanding your body, and getting that really right, because by doing so, getting into the resonance of the earth and what you're actually doing, you know, utilize the forces of creation around you with your intent and discipline, and have them as your ally, rather than trying to do all of these magical rituals and call in all the rest of these different things that a lot of people have no idea about, to try and get them to do something for them. Well, what do you think you're actually doing? And this has been a huge mechanism upon the psychic driving components, where a lot of people don't really comprehend the archetypal games that they've actually played, which, you know, that's a whole other component. But I suppose that's where some of the astrotheology and mythology comes into it as well. So I know I just threw a whole heap down that probably didn't make any sense to you, but there's some absolute gold in there for you to go and do some homework on. And I have spoken upon choices, intent, and discipline, and coming to know your own choice point when it presents itself. Are you going to react with the same programs, beliefs, and perceptions, or give yourself a moment and see it as it is? And is it from a place of new and having the courage to step forward into the unknown? Yeah, a warrior courage into the unknown. Or we're going to need to manufacture stories, or all the rest of this stuff that seems to be the common denominator that has happened really with the driving and the attention based economy that we are all have been subject to, where let's be real honest about it. Yeah, like we can all kind of put our hands up. Some folks might need to put both their hands up and their feet and be like, the person who I portray myself online, is it actually really who I am? Or have I needed to put on a mask and utilize yarns and other experiences to portray something? Yeah. How intent are we really with our with who we are internally as how we project externally? Or is it that, which seems to be a common denominator at the moment, which is fine because a lot of them are pushing the bar, but it's very easy to be a keyboard philosopher and read a whole heap and speak around everything, but have they ever really entered the solar world and had to had their words challenged, or their actually challenged, and had to we can use the term debate it or fight it out? Or does it just turn into, like what I said last live, this you're projecting and it's like, no, you spat on my cupcake, you told me it's frosting, and now I'm questioning you about the frosting, and now I'm projecting. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's fucking wild, isn't it? And this is another component of the psychological fallout as well. But once again, I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one because it's rather relevant. It's rather relevant. I could have picked a better example, but I didn't. I chose this one because having a look at it is fascinating. You may have seen it, you may have not, but it's going around right now and it's relatively fresh about an OnlyFans model who decided that within a 24-hour period, she was going to with 100 dudes. Okay. I'm not going to break it all down, but we're just going to have a look at some of the framing that has taken place with it. So on one side of the fence, and this is where I lean, let's say more from a solar perspective, more rational, direct, and calling things as they are an account, is that did the folks around her or herself actually think that that was not going to destroy that girl? Because if you have a look at the documentary, you can see the end of it. She's fucking, her soul is gone. And what was that all about? We know it's an attention thing. But she put out an invitation to 100, more than 100 dudes to kind of line them up, organize the whole thing was all organized. And then at the end of the doco, you can see her breakdown, which is, does play with your heart a little bit. But it's like, for me, it's like, did you not actually think that that was not going to be the end result upon all the rest of this? What's fascinating about it is that not just that girl, but the folks around her who are organizing all of that for attention, there's no accountability or responsibility at all. It's now turned into, depending upon which way that you're kind of looking at it, that the men who went and were with her, the 100 of them, they should have known better than to do it. And a lot of them should be charged with certain things or whatnot like that. And what else? There's just no accountability whatsoever. And if you speak upon it, the same fucking thing, misogynist, it's this, it's that, or the other. But at what point does the middle ground come in and be like, this is getting out of fucking control now? Out of control. And I suppose trying to keep it Facebook and YouTube rated, it is something, if you're interested, to have a look at, and the social conversations that are happening around it, because you can see, just depending upon where folks' lunar frame is, where they're reacting to it emotionally and they're avoidant of the actual details to begin with. And then let's say from a solar frame, there's a rational, there's a direct, there's an accountability component to it. And then I suppose you've got the extreme set of circumstances where there's some people that are, kind of utilizing it as a way to sling at each other. But where I'm headed to this is that that's another marker of this, let's say, psychological fallout, where are the standards of our culture now? And they're not there at all. You may think they are, but they're not at all. And how do they come back? I don't think they do in their old form. We are at a time of new Octaves of Awareness, which really began in 2012, and the heightening of what's happened over the last 4 years has been fantastic. It's people are pushing the bar, and there's a lot of conversations to really get a gauge upon the zeitgeist. But from a very individual point of view, in Octaves of Awareness, it's what are one's values, principles, and the Constitution upon what they stand on, and will they speak up and have a strong voice and explain it, or are going to be bystanders and play the my team zealot game, my team win or lose kind of situation? And I suppose this is another component of a choice point. Are we really echoing the stories that has a lot to do with emotionalism of the past, of I was hurt or this or whatever it is? Or is it getting to reality? And let's be very real, we've been ignoring reality for a long period of time. We've been playing in illusion and fantasy land about so many different things, and many have kept their mouth closed and gone along to get along. That's okay. And then I think you have one of the worst archetypes getting around at the moment, which are the Ahabs. Topic of another discussion, but there seems to be a whole heap of talking about what really, that have never actually been in the arena. And ultimately, they're the ones with the microphones at the moment, aren't they? So it's a funny time, a very funny time. And with the new Octaves of Awareness, I'll just say this: in an octave of truth, can you stand there in it? ultimately, truthfully, honestly, all of it? Or is there still this pseudo game that we are playing that we need to bend reality to fit the way that we need to see it? And if anybody else shines a light on that, they're now the adversary. Do we still need the adversary in the game to keep on reenacting the programs, beliefs, and perceptions, reanimating the past into the future on a nice loop? It's this, it's that, it's all of the things. Can it just be what was once is no more, in my own domain and in my own authority? Can I occupy a place of being centered? And this is my trajectory, and that's where I'm actually going with it, with principles, values, and a constitution in place that I can come back to, where my intent, my choices and my disciplines actually support that with the creational force that is around right here. And I spoke about the lunar and solar frame before. I'll be doing more chatting on that over the next period of time. But I wanted to speak about the Renaissance Revolution, and I'm excited. I am. There's some folks out there that I respect, one of them being Jack Donovan. He just done a podcast about it, calling it the bro revolution. And I'm not meaning it from let's say, I know it triggers a lot of people, like a manosphere, Tate, red pill, even though becoming red pill aware is important at this time. But a Renaissance revolution of the West is what is needed. Now, I'll share with you a story. I brought it up last week. I said, like, Plato's Republic, it needs to be read like 5 times, before you can really comprehend or understand it. Like, wow, what a mind. And you look at it and you're like, fucking, haven't we fallen off the track? But another one is Socrates. Yeah, Socrates, big story. But he had a muse. Yeah, he had a muse, and that muse taught him, which is a woman. Yeah, a man of knowledge needs a muse. Yeah, to inspire beauty, all the rest of the gold, the fucking juice that everyone's talking about, but they're wanting to recreate it in their image rather than going back in time to these, let's say, golden eras of flourishing. And, the Renaissance period, particularly in Italy, where you had a lot of white nobility, a lot of priestesses actually come out, and that's a whole other subject. But what I bring that up about is that, Socrates had a muse. They taught him how to argue. And then when you have a look at Plato, Aristotle, that went all the way down to Alexander the Great, all of those guys, they had muses, women that inspired them, made them be able to see the world from a different lens. And that's exciting. So with the Renaissance revolution or bro revolution that I'm talking about, is redefining what is beauty once again. Because I can say this, play very heavily in the solar world. Yeah, I still love my cars and all the rest of it. But yeah, and they are beautiful, but the muse, or a muse that a man selects to give him the opportunity to see the world through the muse's eyes, to see beauty, the poetry, to be able to see life in a completely different way, the nurturing components, And I suppose for the Renaissance revolution what I'm talking about is that men of my age and even, let's say, our era, we haven't had a great war. We had the internet come in, and there hasn't really been any great adventures to be had, has there? There's been no exploring, and everything has been predominantly from a lunar frame for a long period of time. And a man in his solar frame needs a project. What is that project? It's actually an idea, thinking about it, philosophizing about it, strategizing about it, and then being able to build it. Yeah, to be able to work a problem and add probably $1,000 to the swear jar and a couple of bottles of rum on the way. But a man that's in his solar frame and is a man of knowledge needs that to keep on having the solar world push up against him. And this is what I'm talking about with the Renaissance revolution. There is a lot of problems, but we're not going to solve those problems with the tools, the systems, and the way of thinking that we have had. We're going to need to have a new domain of knowing, of being able to share ideas. And with the technology is that, what world do you want to be creating now in, let's say, from a physical form? So I'll just utilize this for an instance. So I'll go into this. I spent like 2 months on this. So farming. Okay. I'm not a farmer at all. But I'm not going to sit there and think I'm a farmer by reading a book or two, because of the major problem that it presents is that I don't know that intelligence of being able to read the land, know soil, even wherever the farm would be, the local area, and all the rest of those components. That's not my expertise, and that's not it. But where I can apply my subject expertise is in, let's say, logistics and operations. And by doing so, have you ever seen the movie Interstellar? See, Matthew McConaughey has those tractors and stuff actually basically just working off themselves, doing the farm and all the rest of it. Well, that isn't future anymore. That is now. So just giving you guys that example is that across the board, in a very physical way of doing things, not software, emotion type stuff, very solar, is that where a man is handicapped by knowledge and expertise is now apparent, and it's dependent upon how he actually thinks and utilizes strategy moving forward. So the Renaissance revolution, it really is about men of knowledge coming together once again and redefining the principles that built greatness in new domains of knowing. I'll give you a couple of examples. The United States Constitution. Go and check out that history upon how that came to be. Like, really, it is fucking awesome. Don't worry about the aftermath and all the rest of it, but just that moment, okay, that moment in time. You could also have a look at the Knights Templar as well, how that actually came into being. Yeah, a group of men. We can get into more mythic with Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Yeah, a group of men of knowledge, coming together and creating a new domain of knowing. And there's plenty of examples. We'll be going into this with more Magus Guild stuff than ever before. Hence, I want to get that right. But here we are. Now, there'd be quite a few sisters listening going, perhaps, what about us? Well, you inspire us when you are muses. Have a look at what a lot of men have done and built to make you safe or make your life easier or make our daughters' lives easier. Just have to have a look at the whole of society. Yeah. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm not playing the game of tennis here. I'm just saying that even within the Renaissance Revolution, there is an archetype that is returning, a revival of living a myth. Yes, what was once is no more. We are moving into a new domain of knowing. But is it still going to be the psychic driven programs and this reactionary state of trying to make, is it, all the yin and the all the rest of the other things? Or can you move all of that to the side and go, when I am in my center, who is the true self that comes forward, that doesn't need anything from anybody? It's a very big question. I can't answer it here for you. It is, you can almost say, an initiational process, our own rite of passage. And we are in an amazing time to, let's say anybody that's between 30 and 50, even folks that are in their 60s as well and 70s, is that it's not going to continue the way that it has been. Do you want to yell and scream, they took our jobs? Or are you going to be able to see it as the potential of a fresh new beginning? And who are you actually going to align yourself with? And what can you contribute from a true sense, not an over-exaggerated or over-glorified narcissistic component, once again, which is a part of the psychic driving. Not everyone's a narcissist, but we've all picked up narcissistic tendencies, haven't we, to keep the facade real. So the Renaissance Revolution is on. Those that jump on board that and, be touched by some of the great things that have happened. Because if we were to look at it right now, is that, particularly in the US, like what's going on? Been taught for 10 years, fucking the country is racist and all the rest of these things. Men are bad, like it goes on. Men are bad, men are toxic, women are bad. Okay, how much of that is cultural constructionism that's gone into weaponized psychological warfare and had characters come out, as what I spoke about in the last live as well, with emotional intelligence? It gets thrown around a lot, but go and have a look at it. Is it actually very real, or is it something else? Or was a book came out and it was driven, it went into psychological wokeism through universities and popped out with a whole range of different things that had all the rest of these other agendas and side conversations that got thrown on top that obscured language? The answer to that is yes. I don't think we're really there yet to get to the crux of all of that, but the Renaissance Revolution is on. And for the sisters and the brothers out there, go and read some of the more ancient texts. Have a look at some of those stories. Like, I hint, sisters, who was Socrates' muse? Like, we're still using the Socrates method 2,000 years after his death. Who was his muse that taught him? Like, whoa, massive, isn't it? Who were a lot of these let's say, men of knowledge, who were their muses? Like, it's not forgotten, it's there. And for the astute student, it's always apparent. But how one chooses to see it in its entirety, that comes up to the individual choice, doesn't it? So I will leave it there. Thank you for jumping on this evening. As what I said, I won't be doing these in this format anymore. I don't need to do anything really, but yeah, some more short form and direct and those components. I have been a busy man structuring myself up. And for the Portal Legends, I will catch you guys in the next couple of evenings. And if you have been a Portal member before and want to do this, want to do Emergence, hit me up. I have a very, 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 very special offer for you. And to the lads, Men of Knowledge, I'll be promoting that next couple of days. And obviously you'll see a whole heap of content come out about that. And then there's also Paladin, which is a mastermind. I'll be kicking that off the back end of Feb. But that there is a serious intensive for those that want to go beyond the veil. You know what I'm like. I am who I say I am, but that there is serious business. And I'm excited because I would not have been able to present that even 2 years ago. Where now I'm excited because of, what's the best way of putting this one? A lot of folks are coming into their own, and their understanding has gone to a whole other level. And what that is the quality of questions. And if you're able to hold on to the question long enough, you don't just come up with the answer. You get to see it in a completely different way. And I'll utilize an example of this. It's very easy to look at the symbolisms that have been used by certain cults. Yeah. And it'd be very easy to go, it's all bad. Be very easy to make that argument. But if you want to come into the mystery teachings and you see it for exactly as it is, well, it opens up a whole other level of awareness to you, but also a great responsibility as well. And that responsibility is that service to self or service to others. And it's a fine line. Because if you want to step into the arcane beyond the veil, well, you're in knowing then, and your choices have greater consequences. Think about that one, legends. Yeah, knowing is the key. So peace out, much love and respect, and don't sweat the small stuff. Choose your game. Build momentum. Intent, disciplines, and choices is the game that is at play. So happy to hear from you guys over the next few days, and thanks for the support over this, let's say, past 4 years, because it has not been, I won't say that, it's a learning experience, but if I told you some of the shit that I've had to deal with, you wouldn't believe me. You would not. And yeah, it's been an eye-opener. It really has. But here we are. Choices. Peace out, legends. I'll catch you next time.